We ask, in the interest of conducting efficient meetings and ensuring that they are structured as possible, while being held under the Zoom format, participants are requested to turn off their cameras unless making a public comment. Participants are not required to use their camera during public comment, but are encouraged to do so. Additionally, participants in the meeting will be allowed one opportunity to make public comment on any agenda item. The board president will not recognize speakers seeking to make any additional public comment on any given agenda item after they have already made public comment. In accordance with Board Bylaw 9324B, the district may tape, film, stream, or broadcast any open board meeting. The recording or broadcast may capture images or sounds of those attending the meeting. Any district recording may be erased or destroyed 30 days after the meeting. Recordings made at the direction of the board during a meeting are public records and upon request shall be made available for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. Okay, recognition of guests and presentations.
None this evening.
Okay, correspondence?
None again.
Okay, consent agenda. Do we have any board questions or comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, do we have any public questions or comments on the consent agenda? So raise your electronic hand at this time if you have a question or comment related only to the consent agenda.
I'm seeing none at this time.
Okay, great. Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Okay. We have no items pulled from the consent agenda. So stakeholder communications, citizen oversight committee, subcommittee.
I do not see Tad tonight.
Okay. Do we have any employee association reports?
I can't raise my hand.
That's okay. Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, so just some general news from the DTA. We've begun negotiations with the board and the district office. We're working with the district to ensure several things before our members are willing to go to a hybrid model for teaching. Number one, that staff and students have limited exposure to other people to avoid the spread of COVID in our community. Number two, that the district provides sufficient safety precautions, including appropriate PPE, N95 masks, cleaning measures, and physical distancing for staff and students. Number three, that the district, in conjunction with Solana Public Health, provides sufficient testing sites and contact tracing in the event of an exposure to COVID in our staff, student, or families. That we revisit and develop realistic schedules for the health of staff and students. That we develop reasonable workloads so that both students and staff remain mentally and physically alert without burnout. Number six, that we develop a realistic plan to have equitable class sizes upon return to school sites for hybrid learning. Number seven, that the needs of our special ed students are adequately met while still caring for the health of our staff. We want the board to know that we would prefer not to have several changes between distance learning and hybrid models, so we are strongly pushing for delaying the move to a hybrid model until the Dixon community spread rate is sufficiently controlled. In other information, the DTA continues to work with the district to request transparency in how federal COVID funds are being spent. We do expect some of these funds to be used to ensure the safety and health of our members. DTA leadership continues to monitor each site and its administration to ensure that members are working in the safety conditions outlined in the MOU. DTA continues to work with the district office to resolve tech problems. Many of these issues seem to be at higher level, and so the district is trying to resolve those, and we understand that. DTA leadership fully endorses Prop 15, as we stated in the last meeting, but we want to restate it, which will help fund Dixon school communities as well as community resources such as law enforcement and fire. We very strongly encourage our community to vote for this measure, especially since we are having budget issues. DTA members continue to be committed to ensuring all Dixon students get the best possible education during distance learning and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Do we have an employee association report from SEIU?
Hi, Luke. It's Susie.
Hi, go ahead, Susie.
I just wanted to say a few words for tonight. Our MOU is on the agenda, and I wanted to just say that there was a lot of collaboration to make this MOU come to life. And we had a lot of our members provide so much input for how they can support the sites, which was, you know, kudos to all of them, because their willingness to was to come back to work and to see how they can support the sites. It is as good as we can get for now, and I just appreciate all the collaboration with everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Okay, do we have any parent association reports?
Seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, we will move on and open public comment. Persons wishing to introduce a topic within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district and not on the agenda may do so at this time. By law, subjects not on the agenda cannot be acted upon by the board except to briefly respond, clarify, or refer to staff for review and presentation at a future meeting. Comments may be limited to 5 minutes per person to a maximum of 25 minutes per topic unless extended by the board president. Comments are to be directed exclusively to the governing board, and the board president shall determine who, if anyone, may respond to the comments or questions of the speaker. So if you have a comment that is not an item already going to be heard on the agenda tonight, now would be the time to raise your electronic hand and you'll be called on for your comment.
Seeing none right now.
Okay, yeah, I don't see any either. So let's move on to item 11A, information, discussion, and action. This is an information and discussion item. Brian, take it away. COVID-19 and the 2020-2021 school year update.
Great. Thank you, Luke, and rest of the board. Mark, if you can set me up for sharing here, I'm going to put a document up in just a little bit. So this is our first meeting since Solano County transitioned from the purple tier to the red tier, I do believe. Maybe we transitioned just a couple days before that last meeting. Anyway, it's the first time that we've really had the opportunity to put the whole legitimate consideration of a hybrid model in front of you and in front of our staff and community as well. The conditions of a hybrid reopening are really pretty clearly laid out in the existing guidance that we utilize from Solano County Public Health. Is really our direct source of guidance. They obviously operate in conjunction with the California Department of Public Health and CDC and other agencies as appropriate. So there are a couple of principles that hold firm with the idea of moving into a hybrid program that at this stage are really just universal, right? It's all about social distance, physical and social distancing. It's about PPE. It's about hand washing and sanitizing. It's about mask wear and minimizing risky behaviors such as the social gatherings, large group gatherings, those types of things. So there's not really anything different in terms of what we're being told with the idea of transitioning into a hybrid model, other than, obviously when you start to bring people together, that there is a greater amount of risk in play. And with that risk comes a great deal of responsibility. And as we kick off, some discussion tonight, and I'm going to try to be brief and allow for public comment. I think we're sure that there's a number of people who'd like to get in front of us here as we start this process of considering hybrid, that we honor that fact that you can't do this without having your safety and health considerations at the absolute top of the list. And so, as you see my list here, what I would say about it is these are focus areas for the potential hybrid model. There is nothing about this particular page that is carved in stone. There is nothing about this that will not be open for discussion and conversation. Some of that will happen publicly here on our board meetings. Some of that will happen in the parent town hall meetings that we have announced, which are next Monday in Spanish for all grade levels, Tuesday for elementary families in English, and Thursday for secondary families in English. So all of the things that I'm going to run through here will be thoroughly available, completely available for input and discussion, just as we did with our previous processes regarding distance learning or hybrid back in July, and then the return to work provisions in relationship to our employee groups. So the focus areas, quite intentionally and deliberately, health and safety is the first bullet on the list. As I was saying, and will reiterate again, this has to be the starting point, that the responsibility that we have with regards to health and safety is increased, intensified, whatever you would like to say, as we actually bring students and staff together. There is no way to say anything other than that. And a great deal of what we are currently doing, just with the majority of our employees working in person, is absolutely applicable to our potential hybrid reopening. The add-ons, I think, are things like students in restrooms, student mask wearing, the things like passing in hallways, playground, before and after school, all those types of factors come into the mix, which we haven't had to deal with up to this point in time. So we are fully aware that this is of the highest interest and priority to everybody, and we'll meet that responsibility of addressing it thoroughly. We believe that our initial focus on hybrid should be on the early grades. So TK through second grade, transitional kindergarten through second grade. And we believe that because these are our students who are most significantly challenged in the distance learning model. I've had an opportunity to be with principals over the last several weeks and seeing what's happening in virtual classrooms and watching first graders with absolutely terrific teaching happening from their teachers, and watching the kids on the screen just struggling to be engaged and attentive and really be able to draw the benefit from the great instruction that they're having. So we believe our youngest students are most critical in the overall population. And so what this does mean is that we would not focus on grades 3 through 12 here in an initial hybrid effort. Part of what we would do with bringing back those grades is intend to have a staggered return. So whether that is one grade level at a time or two, but have a period of time where some of the students, the groups of students come in, the grade levels of students, I should say, come in, and then at a time to be determined, a week, 2 weeks later, the next grade level groups of students would come in. All hybrid model would involve the smaller cohorts of students. That's a given in this model. We are not entertaining the idea of having all students in a class be present on the campus at the same time. It would be that synchronous, asynchronous model, just with that synchronous now being in person and students being responsible for independent work, while some students are receiving the in-person instruction. Special education services are, along with our youngest students, just a critical need. We have a preschool special education program, which a lot of people are not aware of, all the way up through 12th grade students receiving services through their individual educational plans. And many of these students right now are struggling really significantly with accessing curriculum and having meaningful learning experience right now. So we would like to see a model that includes working with groups of students who are receiving special education services, and also would like to be able to explore other support programs. Our English learners who are receiving English language development, our students who are in intervention programs, in need of intervention. You know, we have a lot of students who simply aren't successful in distance learning right now, and to what degree we could address their needs with smaller group instruction in person, we would want to explore. Adjustments to instructional schedules. We do believe that we would need to make some adjustments from what we currently have in terms of the instructional schedules. They are very demanding time-wise, both for students and staff, and transitioning within a day from this group of students to another group of students, or from just the day-to-day basis, if we had some students there on Tuesday and Thursday and other students there on Wednesday and Friday, we really do feel an obligation to work with our teachers union on those instructional schedules and making sure that they would be a fit for the hybrid model. Also have to focus on parent choice. If we are in a hybrid model, we completely understand that some families would not be comfortable in having their child return to school at this point in time. So there would be the distance learning option available for those families. And with that, we'd have some very complicated staffing logistical issues to address. If we have unbalanced numbers of families choosing distance learning.
I find it listening to.
Mr. Bessaghini, can you mute? Thank you. Mark, mute him for us. Thank you. The idea of assigning teachers, having teachers assigned to the correct number of students is a really critical one that will take some massaging for sure. Again, working with the labor union on what criteria or what the process would be to determine what teachers would be teaching in a distance model and what would be teaching in person is a significant issue for us to address as well. And then we would also hope to have both timely and positive negotiations process. This is complicated stuff, and we don't have any illusions of this being necessarily easy to do, but we do hope to be able to move through this as quickly as possible, and also to maintain a positive, constructive dialogue with the labor groups as we do this. We know that that is how to get things done when we don't get stuck and when we can maintain, that kind of positive process. So just a few things got listed here as considerations regarding the process. So we will continue to allow for input at these meetings. We have become somewhat legendary in the area for both the amount of public input that we have had, and related to that to some degree, probably a large degree, the length of time that people have had to provide their input. Dixon has been unique, I think, in the number of participants and the amount of input and questions that have been shared through that number. So I think that's a compliment to this board for really providing the opportunity here for people to have their say. As I mentioned, the town hall meetings for parents are going to be held next week. That information is out on our website and was emailed to parents today, out on the Facebook page also. So if you, and I will put it out in my Friday update that goes out to families tomorrow as well. So that'll be a venue for those who want to attend. We obviously will also be engaging in full consultation and negotiations with our labor groups. We will be talking about how to get information from our staff members about their preferences, intentions, and if the district should solicit that information or if the association should do so. We do absolutely want to get that input and information from our staff. And finally, family choice. And I am looking forward to the town halls next week to get some sense of where families are on this. And should we, in fact, take the direction of the TK through second grade approach, we wouldn't be surveying, I don't believe, around the issue of if you'd want to do that. I think given the interest of time, we would actually be asking our families if they wish to continue with distance learning, that they opt into that program. Based on our surveying from back in the summertime, we had about 73% varied by site of families saying that they would have their child return to school in person. We don't know if that percentage is at that same level. We do know there's a wide range of attitudes and beliefs from our parent community out there, understandably so. But there would be a period of time in which families would have to make their choice if they wanted to continue in distance learning, so we could appropriately staff and organize our classes for those students. So that's our kickoff tonight. I don't want to do any other kind of presentation. I obviously begin by answering any questions that the board members have. And then as is our protocol, we would send it out for public comment and questions. So Mr. Foster, it's back to you.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions from the board? No? So just to kind of recap what you're saying, Brian, it sounds like families that might choose distance learning, depending on which teachers request and get assigned to distance learning, those students may have their teacher change.
Correct, yeah. There's no way to predict exactly how that would roll right now, Luke. Thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, you could definitely see some shifting of students from the current teacher to a different teacher based on who would actually be providing the distance learning and who would be providing the in-person. So yes.
And so if we did go with this focused return with younger students, this would also, they would all be more or less in single teacher classrooms such that it would be fewer contacts than students in the middle school or high school going from subject to subject with different teachers.
Absolutely, yeah. Smaller groups, smaller cohorts, and fewer students, just in number on the campus, and then single classroom for the vast majority of students. You might have some students who leave the room for a specialized service, the learning center, or perhaps speech or other items like that, other areas like that. But no, it's a much, much simpler enterprise with elementary age students with regards to keeping them distanced and protected and safer.
Okay. And I know we're very early in this, so I did want to ask, I've seen some stuff going around of people saying Vacaville's going back the 13th and such things. What have the districts around us said? What are they going through the same process that we are, or have they made decisions? What?
Yeah, I was amused to actually see on social media last night that discussion around Vacaville's return. I'd had I'd had a conversation with Vacaville's superintendent of schools around 5 o'clock yesterday, kind of comparing notes on what we were planning, and she would have been surprised if I told her that they were starting school in a couple weeks, because our conversation was around the process where we are. They're about a week ahead of us just in terms of time at the table with their association. All the districts in the county have begun the negotiations process. All of us anticipate it being very complicated. Where you are seeing some reopenings either already happened or being scheduled are in the private schools and in the charter school realm, where it's a single school. Well, two things. It's a single school, and they do not have labor unions, and so there's a great deal more opportunity for the administration and our board of those enterprises to be able to implement planning without having to negotiate. Negotiation's not required. I know those folks consult with their employees for sure. So that streamlines the process definitely, but no one in Solano County has any kind of start date schedule. I think people have target dates perhaps, and I don't know to what degree those have been publicized at all, but we're all, I think, quite a distance away from having dates set about when we could transition to hybrid.
Okay, and as you said, we are now able to start making decisions on this because we've moved in the county from purple to red.
Yes.
My question would be, what happens if the county goes back to purple? What
Good
if
question.
we don't keep improving?
Yeah, good question. So under the current guidance from California Department of Public Health, so this is not a local determination, for schools or districts that reopen while in red, and if there is a return to purple, those schools or districts can stay open. They can, even though the drop back to purple, they can remain open as long as they have reopened during the red phase. If schools or districts do not take the opportunity in red that exists right now, and there's a return to purple, they cannot reopen until the county returns back to red with the 2-week delay after returning to red before you can reopen. So for districts that don't take advantage of the current opportunity, they would lose that if we go back to purple. But for schools who reopen in this window of red, they get to stay reopened even if we return to purple.
But of course, if we reopen in some form and we see problems developing with infections, we have the authority to shut all the schools again as our local board if we choose to do that.
At any time.
And we could also have the county health department shut us down again.
At any time, correct. Yes. Yeah. So that discretion to, if we were to move to hybrid and after some undetermined period of time, just not be comfortable with how, what the conditions are, this board could make that decision to return everyone to distance learning at any time it wanted.
Okay. Any other board questions before we go out to public comment? Okay, seeing none, let's open this up for public comment.
Have John up first.
Go ahead, John.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you. I can appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Dolan, and obviously this is such a difficult time. And when you say the number one priority is the health and safety of everyone involved, I recognize that. I understand that. I'm an employer myself, and I've got over about 280 employees on any particular given day. So I understand that when you say that. I do believe, though, that our responsibility has to be to the kids first and foremost. And I'm not sure I understand why, when we're talking about coming back to school, that there's going to be this kind of a staggered approach depending on the age of the children. And I'm sure kindergarten to second, I recognize they're going to have a lot of difficulties, but I will tell you, I think all the kids are struggling in their own way with this, whether it's a senior in high school or a seventh grader or, you know, a fifth grader, or whatever it may be. You know, I've listened to enough of my kids' Zoom classes to know that there's not complete attendance going on. You know, I hear that some of the teachers saying, okay, we're going to give it a few more minutes just about every day. And, you know, sometimes a pretty shocking number of kids just aren't showing up. You know, and I know what you're talking about, you know, other school districts are not coming back yet. You know, and this is now, it's going to be a process to determine when we're doing this, and we don't have any particular dates in mind. But, you know, I sat in on these meetings a couple of months ago, and, you know, you talked about the fact that you had all the you know, the plexiglass, you had all these classroom designs ready to go. It seems to me that once the county says go, we ought to be able to just, you know, I know it's not just as easy as flicking a switch, but it should be pretty close. I mean, this is not new. We've been dealing with this for quite some time. And I would hope that we're making progress just behind the scenes, and that once we're ready to do this, you know, we're ready to go, and we should be able to bring the kids back in the classes. And I understand you've got labor union issues. Obviously, I'm not privy to those discussions. I don't know exactly what's going on, but again, it would seem to me that, you know, we've been hearing for a long time, the teachers want nothing more than to get back to the classroom. I would ask that the teachers honor that. And once the counties say you're good to go and we can medically do this, and it's so, you know, from a health situation that it's okay to do this, that we ought to be back in class. And I think it'd be obviously best for the kids. I think it'd be good for the teachers as well. You know, I just don't think we're all that early in this. I mean, we've been through this. We've been going through this for all year pretty much. So I'm just hoping we can get the kids back to school as soon as possible, and that it will apply to everyone, not just, you know, kindergarten to second. I think it should apply to everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
I have Valerie up next.
Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm trying to turn my camera on. There I am. There we go. So Luke, I just want to thank you so much for bringing up Vacaville, because I was hearing that too, and I'm like, what? Vacaville's opening? What's going on? I so appreciate, Luke, I so appreciate your thoroughness, making sure that before we start the meeting, no one's in the waiting room, everybody's here. You're always trying to make sure that everybody has a voice, everybody is included. And I want to thank you for asking those really great questions, and also asking the question about if we went in the purple again, how would that work? And so I just want to say, shout out to Dixon High Back to School Night. Marquez, it was a great night. It was set up so well. There was very little problems getting into the classes. All the teachers, my daughter's teachers, were very positive and really trying to make the best of it, which I so appreciate, because this is just, you know, this isn't good, what we're doing right now. It's not the best and optimum situation. So given all of that, I just really appreciate all the efforts, and I'm going to stay on my side of the street as a parent. And I would just like to say, as a parent, we need to get these kids back to school as soon as possible. And I know a lot of people agree. I mean, everyone agrees, but there's so many different opinions and viewpoints on how we're going to get this done, and what's considered safe and what's considered not safe, and what should be necessary. And I can appreciate staggering from TK to second grade. However, I'm kind of trying to do the math here. We're talking about the 3 elementary school sites, 2 to 3 classes per grade level. We're talking about 18-ish classes, 450-ish kids. Or am I way off on my numbers? Okay, so if we're going to stagger, how long is that going to take? That's my concern. I'm not saying we should rush, but how long is the staggering process going to take? And what about our older kids stuck at home online, which is not optimum? And their challenges are different. And of course, the primary grades are very, very important. They're all important. But we can't, I really don't, you know, as a parent of a high schooler who needs social interaction, she can see her friends, but they're masked and they're 6 feet apart. And I appreciate her friends' families and how they're trying to continue the social piece, but she needs more of that with her instruction and in class. So the staggering seems like it could take a really long time. I'm kind of concerned about that piece of it. And, you know, I thought that once we got into the red and we got the protocols from the county that it was considered safe to open again, the governor, I mean, we should be moving, I believe we should be moving quickly. I mean, we talked about it all summer, all the different things you guys put into place. And I just don't think we should, I just don't think we should, I just think we need to make sure we're moving, and we're moving not too fast, but we're not moving too slow either. Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie.
Thank you, Valerie.
Chloe up next.
Go ahead, Chloe.
Teach 6th and 8th grade language arts, Cia Jacobs. I have a couple sort of different points that are all related to hybrid opening that I just wanted to say. The first was, I wanted to say thank you to the district and to the board for actually really taking not to counter what Valerie was just saying, not slow, but deliberate and thoughtful approach to this reopening. You know, as a teacher who is frankly just as miserable as I assume most of my students are being away from them, I'm also well aware of the fact that Dixon, even though the county has moved into the red zone out of the purple zone, Dixon still has the highest incidence rate. And we have, I think, the smallest population in Solano County. So my concerns about, you know, rushing to reopen into hybrid with all students back on campus is that, you know, talking about Mr. Geyer's, you know, the teacher saying all they want to get back in the classroom, you know, let's see them honor that. I think it's important to stress that we need to see the community honor, you know, social distancing protocols, mask wearing. There's so much of it not happening in Dixon. I live in Dixon. You know, I grocery shop here. I walk my dogs here. So it's a little scary, you know, to be thinking about having everybody back on campus at once. So thank you guys for, you know, prioritizing the littles who really do need that early academic intervention. And I will say that I think my middle schoolers are really starting to get the hang of distance learning to the best of their ability, and so have I. I've been really proud of how that's gone, and staff members working really hard. And I know that it's going to be a really big challenge to do the same thing in hybrid, especially depending on how the schedule changes, even though technically our distance learning schedule was created for hybrid learning. Anyways, so that's sort of my end of that piece. The second thing I wanted to bring to everybody today is a desperate plea for literacy. I am very concerned about my students who don't have access to books at home, and especially because now we are talking about a staggering return and we're not totally sure on dates. I need to get books in their hands. The district needs to get books in their hands. And I think really the easiest way to do that is, like our you know, fellow school districts in Solano County, to work in partnership with Solano County Library. Now I know that there's that situation is a little bit complicated. I think that there's something going on with like our technology agreement that they're not totally down with. But this is so important, especially as we're thinking about minimizing contact as much as possible with things like library books, and just making sure that our kids have access to the #1 thing that promotes literacy development, which is reading books that they want to read. It's my entire focus this year of my curriculum. It would just be really nice to have the district and community and Solano County support and engagement on getting books into their hands. So those are my 2 pieces. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'm looking forward to dealing with this, noodling out this problem as we move forward in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you, Chloe.
Betsy up next.
Thank you, Mark. I'll try to start my video here. Give me a minute. I wanted to just say thank you as well to Luke for being thorough. And I have been polling my fellow parents that are in different districts. There's a lot of districts in California that have returned to in-person instruction. And I think it's interesting that we look at what they're doing and see what's successful for them. I know some of the districts that my friends teach for were allowed to go back in person for 2 weeks, followed by at-home instruction, online instruction. So as far as I'm concerned, if we come back and we get sent home again, that's okay with me. The best practice is that our children have in-person instruction. And so anything that gets us to in-person instruction, I support. I want to talk to the parents right now. I want the parents to keep in mind that how we phrase this, how we talk about this in front of our children is incredibly important. I talk to my children about practicing with their masks. I don't make a big deal about it. It is a minimum expectation. When we go somewhere that we will be close with our friends, we wear our masks. I will show you my little girl's mask again, just like I did a time before. It's cute. She got to pick her fabric. It's not restrictive. She goes scootering wearing this. She plays dollies. My son goes scootering with his mask on so that he can hang out with his friends. If we as parents talk about this as a positive thing, we get to go back to school. We get to see our friends. We get to learn in person. This is something that we get to do, and we can earn it by following directions and being as safe as possible. And I think that when I talk to my friends who are teachers, and when I talk to my friends whose children are in high school or even the lower grades, and the districts who have been successful and not had to close down and not been sent home, the reason why they are successful is there is a hard and fast rule about children being expected, minimum qualification, minimum expectation that you wear your mask, you wash your hands, you follow the directions, and this comes from us as parents. My friends who are teachers say that in their districts, one of my friends teaches in a district that is very similar socioeconomically to our district. And she says the best thing that has happened for her third grade students is that the parents are on board, and the parents have told their kids, this is our ticket. This is our ticket to in-person instruction. This is a discussion that we can have with our high schoolers as well. We can trust them to be responsible. We can speak about this positively, and that we can do this. And I would hope that we as parents would recognize that this is an opportunity for our kids to have the best practice when we do get to go back in person. And it's a chance for us to practice taking care of each other as a community. This is a way for us to practice being successful in our own little tiny town. It's not about the rest of the world. It's about us and what's important to our children. And so I think the reason why I'm speaking tonight is not necessarily to advocate for anything in particular, but to say that I think we need to trust our children. I think we need to treat our children like they are smart, capable individuals. I will remind everybody, I substituted in a first grade class the very last day that we had in-person school. If you can remember, back then, we didn't know that this was an airborne problem. We didn't know who carried it. We didn't know what to think. And the best practice at that time was wash your hands, sneeze into your elbow. Those first graders, I did not have to remind them to sneeze into their elbow, to wash their hands, to sanitize, because they knew that was the expectation. And they did a fantastic job. And they were so little. And you know what? They were happy about it. And we had such a nice day. Twice I had to remind kids, oh, remember, we're not, we don't sneeze with our hands. We cover up. But aside from that, I had one of the best days of substitute teaching I have ever had. And that is with all of us as adults being very concerned for them and reminding them to wash their hands and to do a good job. So I want us to trust our children to make the right decisions. I want us to all trust our children to also want to go back to school. This is a good thing. So I say, even if we get sent home again, even if the rest of our county can't do a good job and stay healthy, I support very carefully having us come back to school. And like I said, very carefully. And I want to be respectful of the requests, any of the requests the teachers have made. I haven't heard that list, so I apologize. I can't speak to that. But I just wanted to say, wearing this is not a big deal, parents, and it's totally worth it. Let's go back to school for half a day. It's totally worth it.
Thank you, Betsy.
Pinky up next.
Hi guys, thanks for letting me speak tonight. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time. And my question is, right now at my school, I teach and we have a very strict protocol for teachers and anyone on campus. There's a QR code that we now have to scan to check in, so the district has a count of who is at what site at any given time. And before we can even go into the office, we have to have our temperature taken. So we're just, Yolo County is just now getting back into the red. So we are having our negotiations and discussions next week. But I know that there are no temperatures being taken at sites where teachers are going into work. So my question to you is, how are you going to implement that for children when it hasn't yet been done for the few dozen teachers who are coming onto campus? What's the expectation going to be for temperature checks, if that is an expectation at all? I'm not sure what kind of health checks we're going to be doing before kids are allowed on campus. If we can't even really make sure that that happens for teachers who are adults who would be responsible to go in and get it checked or whatever, how are we going to handle that with 20 kids per class, if that's, you know, the kids that are coming in, times however many teachers on each campus, and who will be responsible for taking those temperatures? So that's my question, just for the health safety. I know obviously, like visually, if a kid's looking sick or whatever, then we can turn them away and go home, but are there going to be in one door, out another door, just for that safety protocol, which is what our administration is following very strictly at our school. My principal has gone so far as to like block one of the doors when a teacher was trying to come in the wrong way. So that's just one of my concerns for health and safety. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pinky.
I have Holly up next.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I just have a couple of questions. First, I want to say that I'm for kids getting back into school as soon as possible. We've been out long enough, and I think it is doing harm mentally as well as to their education, but we need to do it safely. I agree with the plan on having the younger grades go back, you know, as soon as possible. I know distance learning is harder for them. Manipulating a computer and doing Zooms is difficult for kids that age, so I agree on that. But I don't really agree with the upper grades being kind of left behind on the totem pole when we reopen and being last on the list. As hard as it is for everyone working, this isn't really the education they'd be getting if they were in school right now. So I'm advocating for, you know, that not to really happen, that they're last on the totem pole. I have an 11th grader, and it's actually a pretty important year for learning and college and things like that. So I don't want that to just be, oh, they know how to use a computer, so we can, you know, let them wait until last to go back. My last question is on the hybrid schedule. Is this the exact one we will be using when we go back? I think it's pretty difficult, especially for working parents. I'm, you know, lucky enough to stay home so I can get my kids where they need to go, but switching back and forth, you know, you're there some mornings, there some afternoons, back and forth for working parents. I feel like it would kind of be hard for them to get kids to and from where they need to go. And will there be a difference in the hours to allow for travel back and forth? Because people that don't live, you know, super close by, or kids walking, they're going to be taking their lunchtime to get to and from. So that's really all I have to say. I just want to say thanks for having the discussion and being open to listening to everybody and their opinions.
Thank you, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.
I have Anthony up next.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Good. Go ahead, Anthony.
Cool. Thank you. First things first, Mr. Dolan, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, so I need you to remove that Seahawks logo, please.
You know, I'm sorry. in so many ways, Anthony, that you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, including your recent devastating loss to my Seahawks. So you're the first person in any meeting I've been in, and this was a gift, and I had to put it on my wall behind me. But yeah, get over it.
Thank you. I don't really have a question. I have more of like I know you guys are going through a lot as far as all the teachers and the staff is going. There's a lot of negativity going on in the world right now and the way you guys are handling things and all that stuff. As far as distant learning goes, my son won't be going back to school until at least January. I'm confident with that. He's thriving on distant learning. And that's the reason why I wanted to mention something tonight. Your staff at Gretchen Higgins are doing a wonderful job with this, in my opinion. And I just wanted to give them a very public shout out. You know, we started last year with Miss Trish, did great with my son. He's on the spectrum. He did great with her. This year with Miss McCrae, doing amazing. Miss Mack, Miss Lori. You just have a really awesome staff there. Whatever you guys decide to do with distant learning, I'm 100% for, as long as we have the option to, you know, stay home if we'd like to. I just wanted to give a really big shout out to them because, in my opinion, they've been doing a fantastic job with this. And I know it's a hard job you guys are doing right now. So kudos to them. And that's all I got.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you, Anthony.
Michelle up next.
Hello, sorry for my, thank you. I'm trying to multitask and exercise at the same time, so I'm a little red-faced. I also kind of wanted to piggyback on what Anthony just said, giving a shout out to some teachers. My daughter is a first grader at Tremont, and I kind of have an extraordinary kid. I can admit she is doing magnificent. I mean, she wants to go back to campus, but she can manage a Zoom all by herself, and I'm a working parent. So it's a blessing for me that I don't have to hover over her all day or half the day, because I can't, because I'm expected to work. But I think so much of that is her wonderful teachers, Ms. Platano, Ms. Whitty, and Ms. Gutierrez have just been excellent. So I am in awe of what they do every day with these little kids. I have been a huge advocate of them going back to campus. I want her to be back at campus. I joke that when the announcement is made that they can, I will be there bright and early to drop her off and see her on her way. It makes me a little nervous to think that she would have to switch teachers, though. She's pretty adaptable at this point, but she's, you know, even over Zoom, created like really good relationships with her teachers. I mean, the student teacher came back after a couple weeks and my daughter started crying. She was so happy to see her on the screen. So that makes me a little nervous. And I know things have to get done and she'll be fine, but I just think like we want to send little ones back because being in person is better for them. But I just think about like how difficult that would be for them to adjust to having a new face teach them. But like I said, I understand that things have to get done. But I mean, I'm looking forward to be involved in this. I hope that there's, you know, more surveys sent out to help, you know, show what the community wants. And I agree with Betsy about the mask wearing. My daughter goes to Dixon Dance Studio and she's able to do ballet wearing a mask, and she's happy to do it because she gets to be doing something that feels familiar to her. So that's been really great. So thanks for your time, and I'm looking forward to being engaged in the conversation.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle.
I have Tammy up next.
Hi, everybody. So I have a question. First of all, thank you guys for all of this. Again, Luke, your thoroughness is amazing, and asking the questions that you asked. They were actually some of the questions that I had to ask, but now I don't have to. But what I want to ask is, do you guys, like, what is the, like what Pinky said, the PPE and the protocols that you guys are going to have in place for, I do have a second grader, so she would be a part of this, although I would probably choose distance learning for my own personal reasons. But what's it going to look like when a kid is sick, and what is the PPE being offered in each one of these classrooms? Is there plexiglass going to be put up around their desks, or how that's going to look? What type of measures are you guys going to take? Because we haven't had to take them yet. Because kids aren't in school, and so the classes are just kind of empty with desks stacked in places. What is it going to look like in those classrooms? And then also, Like Pinky said, the temperature checks and things like that. Is that something that we're going to have to do with all the students and the staff? Is it something that you guys are going to mandate? And then is there enough PPE for the students and the staff to go back? As far as me being the nurse at the school, is there enough stuff for us to stay protected as well? My last question is, if a kid does get sick, what does that look like? Again, being the nurse at the school, it concerns me as to what, my office is small. And so what does it look like when there's, you know, so many kids that are sick all at once and they're having to be sent home where they can be waiting, the things like that. I know in the prior discussions, you talked about not so much an isolation room, but a room that will be set up for the kids that have symptoms. What does that look like for each site for these younger kids, you know, right around flu season? And they have, you know, runny noses. What are the protocols for that? Like what things are in place? What are going to be the rules basically for those kiddos that do get sick, and who is the one that is going to be in contact with them? Is it one specific person? Is it a set group of people? So just concerned about, again, the PPE and the health precautions that are going to be taken for these kids if they do go back. So that's kind of it. Just those questions about, you know, the PPE, the plexiglass, the masks, the gloves, the, you know, all of the stuff that goes along with protecting them, you know, health-wise, and, you know, to keep them safe, since that's our number one priority, and also to keep the staff safe, not just the, you know, the students. So that's my question. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
I have Nicole up next.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. I typed up some notes. I just do better that way. So I'm just going to read my notes to you. As I understand it, Brian said that in spite of great teaching, quote, the youngest learners are struggling. And I believe that. I've spoken to my colleagues. I understand their challenges, and I get that. I request that you not lump second graders in with the TK, K, and first graders. I can only speak to my class, but I can assure you that what I'm seeing is probably true in other classrooms as well. I invite you to come to my Zoom class anytime. That is an open invitation to see how productive, happy, and involved my students are. My attendance rate is nearly 100%, and I have an average of 50 papers to grade daily. And I say that as a positive comment. It's amazing. My students are working hard, they're learning, they're becoming independent. Like a previous speaker said, it's going so well in spite of the fact that it's not in person. And I ask you, you can ask my principal what she's been seeing. Her feedback has been amazing. Additionally, I've surveyed my parents regularly. I keep wanting and soliciting their feedback. And while no one is happy about COVID, they are happy with their children and their teachers. Their responses have been extremely positive. I'm actually going to lose instructional minutes when we move to second graders to a hybrid model. We will be spending precious moments washing hands, dealing with behavior issues, spacing children out, learning how to move from spot to spot, or how to stay in our seats, and focusing on distancing instead of focusing on learning. I'm hearing that parents and students can choose the safe route of staying in distance learning. It concerns me that I don't have that choice, and I can't make that personal safe decision. And finally, I believe that this should be an all or nothing decision. Look, if it's safe, then it's safe, and we go back. And if it's not safe, then we don't go back. I mean, it seems very clear to me. I don't believe it's fair for teachers who are not comfortable with returning to school due to safety issues to basically, Luke, be penalized, and everybody listening, to be punished for being primary teachers. It's also, I want to make clear, a misconception that all teachers feel safe going back to in-person teaching. I heard several people say all the teachers can't wait to get back. All the teachers are ready to come back. That is a misconception. That is not true, and I am not alone. It's not equitable amongst your employees to send some of us back with what we consider is a risky situation and not have others go back. And so for all of those reasons, I would urge you, number one, to really be conservative and hold back on a hybrid model until it is absolutely really clear that it's safe. And I feel a little bit selfish in this way, but I don't think it's being selfish. I think a lot of K-1 teachers do want to go back. I don't think second grade automatically needs to be lumped in that. And again, you're all welcome to come visit my classroom and be a fly on the wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, I don't currently see any other. Do we have anyone else that would like, oh, Mr.
Inouye.
Okay, let's see. Camera rolling.
Go ahead, Steve.
All right. Hey, thanks. Hey, so my name's Stephen Inouye, and I teach mathematics currently at C.A. Jacobs, soon to be John Knight Middle School. Hey, I don't know if we're going to go back in 2 weeks. I don't know if we're not going to go back till 2025. But what I do want to talk about is maybe a shift in paradigm, how we do business. And I'm hoping that many of these things are already in place or are being worked on. I know that some aren't, because just from observation, you know, from what I see when I'm in my classroom, my paradigm, I would not pick a date and then open. I would get everything set to open, then pick a date. Sort of goes with what Mr. Geyer said, you know, let's get things in order now. In the past, we picked a day to start school. Ready or not, it came. And if we were short some desks, just have kids sit in the back or use a folding chair, or maybe we were short some books and you just share during class time. I can see picking a date and then not having things in place when we open. That would be bad. The difference is, instead of it just being an inconvenience, you leave gaps for a virus to travel. Instead of being annoyed, you open the door to contracting a disease and either dying or passing on that disease to someone who can die. In my paradigm, as we get structural items in place, that's all this plexiglass and any of these other types of items, have people check to see if everything is truly in place and in working order. Often more eyes on the mark, errors and anomalies can be found that otherwise might be missed. Sometimes it truly takes a village, and maybe we can take this opportunity now while there's time to actually get some of these things in place. And like I said, I'm not privy to everything. I don't know if these things are in place yet. I just know that from my observations, there are some things that are not, or at least one thing. In my paradigm, we would produce a working document that spells out an action plan on what we should do as situations arise. Thinking off the top of my head, it could be how we deal with the substitute teacher issue, how we accommodate parent needs, wishes, if they wish to keep their child at home. With the dynamics of these parents' requests, you know, home versus school, how is staff to be allocated to handle the many combinations and permutations that will arise from this situation. As a math guy, I can see all these. It's a very complex now math master schedule. It's just not apparent to me now that this was necessarily thought of before we started. So I don't necessarily see that, but it might be. I just know that in one of my classes for my AB, I have 20 in one and only 20 in the A group, 13 in the B group. So, you know, it's not always as balanced, and how that 20 is going to fit into my classroom. What are the protocols if someone develops COVID-19, you know, whether it be students or staff? Again, spelling all these things out, trying to think, you know, before all this happens. Maybe how we deal with bottleneck issues at school at every site. In addition to just entering and leaving the classrooms, there are areas of schools that funnel students through small areas. All of this ignoring the fact that, you know, they're just kids and they're going to huddle next to each other. I mean, I do that when I go, rare opportunity, I get to go to the grocery store. I mean, I see another adult. I am starving for adult to conversation. You know, I will engage, you know, people I haven't seen for 50 years, you know, and talk to them for a bit. They're gonna bumblebee together too, and pedestrian pedestrian traffic flows are actually going to have to be thought out and anticipated ahead of time. We just can't wait till that first opening and then see a problem and then go try to go fix it. Again, it's the math fluid type of situation. What are the potential flows of traffic? How are we going to deal with them? How are we going to position adults in place to help mitigate all those views? Again, I think we just really need to try to think this before kids come back. Again, we might have time now. And again, many of these things I'm hoping are being thought of and dealt with as we speak. How do we deal with students putting others at risk? Things that are specific to COVID-19, like spitting or going up to someone's face and breathing on them or pulling down or taking masks. In the past, that'd be a small little thing, but now it's a huge, big thing. And again, I'm hoping that these things are being worked on. And then in my paradigm, we would actually care what happens before students arrive to school and after they leave, not just as the school district, but as a community.
Forward and hope we don't. Oh, Mark's back and he
Mark
made
back as the host.
Okay,
I
so
don't know
we're
how
good.
that happened.
Holly,
Okay.
Holly, you can submit a timesheet to be compensated for your time as host. Or maybe
So it
I'll
looks
just.
looks like we've got Kathleen next.
Yes, thank you. Although I think Mrs. Purcell would make a fine Zoom host. So I just wanted to speak tonight. Thank you for your time. And I just wanted to speak to data. Up. So we have 5% of the population in Solano County, but our COVID cases make up 7%. And furthermore, our cases are continuing to rise in Dixon. I would feel far more comfortable if we noticed a static trend among our COVID cases, but they're not flattening, they're not decreasing, they are rising. And they're rising in 9 days from 410 cases on September 22nd to tonight, because the Solano County dashboard gets updated every evening by 6 p.m. So as of October 1st, we in Dixon increased our cases by 10. So that's a little over 1 case increase per day. And sadly and startlingly, Dixon's incidence rate has been the highest incidence rate in Solano County since August 3rd. Dixon's incident rate is now 2,122 cases per every 100,000 people, whereas Vacaville's incidence rate is 1,101 cases per 100,000 people. I am really concerned that our data do not speak to safety. And I ask our school board, I ask you, Mr. Dolan, I ask every other member of the cabinet that we look specifically at our community, that we are myopic in a good way, that we are solely focused on what the data say about how our community is handling COVID-19 before we allow our school district to open and handle students back in the classroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you. Okay, Amy?
I may next.
Uh-oh, we can't hear you. No, it's not working. It does not appear you're muted. We just can't hear you for some reason. Sorry, no, we can't hear you. Maybe if you have access to another device you could call in on possibly? Okay, why don't we move on? and when she
I'm
gets-
readmitting her. Can you try again?
Okay.
Unmute yourself now.
Okay, can you hear
There
me
we
now?
go.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, that
okay.
works. Go ahead, Aimee.
And for those keeping score at home, I'm now the host, and that was deliberate. So
So I just want to speak as a parent, right? Because I totally understand wanting to come back to school and the importance, especially because I totally agree that there are students that do, need the in-person instruction. However, right, I do as a parent, just like I believe Anthony mentioned, I know that for me, like my son won't be going back at least until January for sure. And I do just want to, bring up the fact that we are entering the colder months. And I think that has to be taken into consideration too, right? In the sense that, flu season always in general, right, is tough at school, right? Because of the fact that it spreads quickly and fast. And I think that hypothetically speaking, if we were to go back soon, right, during these cold months, I think that it would be stressful for everybody, right? For students, for teachers, and for staff, because a lot of the, COVID symptoms there are similar stuff to the flu. And I can only imagine that would add anxiety to students, and like I said, teachers and staff, that would be quite negative, I think, to them. And so I guess, I just want to put in my 2 cents that I totally hear, have wanting to come back in person. And of course there is an importance of that, and all of that. But I do just want to make sure that is being taken into consideration, right? That we are entering into flu and cold season where kids are already going to be spreading germs. And, I can't imagine what that would feel like being in school, and so, yes, those were just my 2 cents. And thank y'all for listening.
Thank you, Aimee.
Mrs. Irvine is up next.
Good evening. I just wanted to let you know that I 100% agree with Nicole Dubois. I teach 2nd grade at Gretchen Higgins, and my students are rocking it. They are attending class every day. They are turning in their assignments, and they are loving what we are doing at school. And I know that it's not the easiest thing for distance learning, but I'll tell you, my 2nd graders are there every day. They know how to run their computers. They know how to mute and unmute themselves. And we are actually having a fantastic year right now. And I just wanted to let you know that you wanted something better than the spring, and you got it. And this has been a great start to our school year. And the second thing I want to say is I'm very, very nervous coming back to school and having to give up some of my students. It almost makes me want to cry to think that some of my students will go to another teacher. I can't even imagine them coming back to school or not coming back to the classroom and being not even just the young students, but any student. If you come back to school, you want to be with the teacher you started with. It is so hard on these kids anyhow. Why would you even consider having them be with a different teacher? Makes me really sad. So I really hope that you take that in consideration when you decide on how you're going to come back for a hybrid model. Thank you.
Thanks, Court.
Thank you.
Kathy Michaels is up next.
So now I'm talking just as a teacher and as a private citizen rather than as DTA representative. I wanted to commend the parent who earlier, and I'm sorry I don't remember your name, who was talking about training your child to wear a mask. I think that's absolutely wonderful, and I think I'm really, really appreciative of that. Having said that, I have been to 2 businesses in Dixon where no one was wearing masks. I went through a group of about 35 teenagers in Vacaville at the outlet malls maybe a week and a half ago, and I thought, I'm going to stop and tell them to get their masks on because none of them were wearing masks and they were congregated. But I thought, okay, you know what? I'm not on duty. I'm going to just drive through them and not hit anybody. And the next day, one of my students at Dixon said to me, I saw you last night. You were in Vacaville. And I said, you did? And he said, yeah, I was in that big group of kids that were sitting there. And I thought, this is the problem. This is the problem that we as teachers are seeing that I'm struggling with. I have family, older family in Florida. My parents live in Florida. I have not seen them for almost a year and a half. I want to see them at Christmas time. I will not be able to travel to see them if there's COVID going around. And I think that, you know, when Dixon steps up as a community, not as individuals, but as a community, when we step up and do what we know we need to do, then you will have the support of every teacher, because then it will be stopped. But right now, I'm not seeing that. And I say that with the best of intentions. And I'm at the high school, so I'm not somebody who's asking to teach remotely. But I'm saying, I want to see my parents. My dad is 86. And I want to see my dad.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Dixon teacher has a hand raised.
It's Ryan. I did have my hand raised. I just want to say that I also 100% agree with Nicole Dubois and with Mrs. Irvine. I am a second grade teacher. I have 100% attendance. I had a child say to me today that she wished we went to 4 o'clock because she didn't want to leave. Our kids are thriving. Some of them are doing very well on the internet. And I found that out in the spring too. So it's not always what's best for one is best for the other. I also want to say I 100% agree with Mrs. Irvine in the fact that I would be devastated to lose any of these kids. This is my class now. You fall in love with your class. They used to say you fall in love with your new class after 3 weeks. It took me the first day for this group. They're reading to me. They read on video. They send it in. They're turning in their homework. Their assignments are well done. I have kids who, you know, struggled to do their assignments at school that are suddenly doing them. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Okay, looks like right now there's no one with their hand up. So if you have a comment on this item, please raise your digital hand now. Okay, seeing no more, we'll close public comment. Brian, were there some things here that you got down that you'd like to address or answer?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Luke. So I think Valerie posed the question of how long would staggering take, and especially with regards to getting the secondary level students, middle and high school students back in place. You know, we don't know. You know, I think that there is a fairly widespread approach, and by no means in all districts, of phasing in from the lower age students up into the higher. You know, my own sense. Well, it's a two-edged sword, right? So you can have higher expectations for older students to know and understand the protocols and practices and wear the know how to wear the mask, know how to stay distant, all those types of things. And the other side of that is that they're also more likely to not adhere to the things that they know that they are supposed to do. That where the young ones will try to follow the rules, perhaps a little bit more. So, you know, one of the reasons, well, you know, there's several reasons why we look at this phased-in approach, and one of them is to ensure that we do it well, right? And I think when you talk about capacity to address the needs that have been expressed here tonight and that we're fully aware of ourselves prior to tonight with regards to safety practices, et cetera. You know, we're a small district. We don't have a lot of specialized staff. We need to be able to make sure that we have adequate numbers of LVNs and other health supports, and starting with 2 or 3 grades at a, you know, two 2 grades at a time, and phasing that in does make us more confident that we will be able to do this effectively, right? And so going from TK to 12 feels like going from 0 to 120, not even 0 to 60. So I can't give you an answer on exactly when. I just think logistically, there is a little bit more ease in the secondary level, the older kids. Management, once they're here, another question perhaps, but actually organizing for them feels a little bit simpler at this point. Next question I took note of was from Pinky, and that was regarding temperature checks. And she's correct, we are not doing any temperature checks at this point in time. We, I don't know what our final decision would be on that. As I've said many times now, I participate in a Friday meeting with Director of Solano County Public Health, other public health staff, superintendents and charter directors in the county. And Dr. Matias, our county health director, is not, I think I can say fairly, is not someone who actually encourages the temperature checks as a useful tool. That the vast majority of cases of that you really would not, there's very few instances in which a temperature check would identify someone who has the virus, is how I would state his summary. Now, that is not to say that we would not utilize temperature checks. I think that's part of that planning process that has to get completed entirely. Next question I had was from Holly. Would we, and I think this was especially with regards to the elementary, but I'll speak to it broadly. So part of what we told our Teachers Association yesterday, and it was on my sheet as well, we absolutely have to be open to adjustments in the instructional schedules. Transitioning to people on the sites is much more complicated than having people bounce in and out of Zoom. So the idea that we would follow the exact same schedules lockstep as to what we're doing right now, it's just not practical. And so consultation with our staff and labor group would be part of that process of determining what the schedules would look at. Tammy had a whole bunch of questions, all kind of wrapped up in safety. It was about protocols. It was what happens if a student has it, temperature checks, the PPE, who handles it if a student is sick on campus. So obviously with kids not here yet, we haven't had to address this, deal with an actual circumstance. And part of how we would approach this planning is based on how many kids would actually be on the site at a time. There's a variety of ways that you could do hybrid, everything from, the AM/PM, the AABB or the ABAB. You could also do the ABCD, and in a primary class only have 6 kids on campus at a time, and balance that with distance learning practices and asynchronous learning as well. So we have to get a little bit further into our process before we can answer all of those questions with specifics. But again, the top bullet on that page was the health and safety concerns, and we just can't entertain reopening in the hybrid model without having answers to those questions. It's, I think we have to have a little bit more specificity of what the model will look like. Do we have 1 group of students coming per day? Is it 2? Is it 4 a week, or is it 2 a week? There's just a great deal of variability in what could happen. So we will be looking at the details as we move along. But all very fair and appropriate questions there. Luke, those were the only ones that I heard specifically as questions. I don't know if you had any other things you'd like me to respond to, or if I missed any specific questions.
Just a couple sort of generalized things, and you kind of addressed this with Tammy's questions, and you kind of said, since safety's first, we will need to address all these things as we go along. But obviously, if we don't have PPE, if we don't have adequate PPE, that would make it an unsafe situation.
Correct.
I mean, and we've got that stuff now. So I mean, that's all going to be part of the ongoing situation, and we'll get into a lot more detail on these issues, right?
Sure, you bet.
With respect to Chloe's comments about books, I think that's something we can certainly discuss more, what the district can do to try to get books out for kids that may not come to site. But I would also want to point out that there has been ongoing discussion with the library, and I know they're looking at right now trying to come up with a model where every kid will have a library card, and maybe possibly there was prior discussion about will their district ID function as a library card. So that's ongoing, and hopefully we can make that an opportunity for kids they can reserve and pick up books even if there are issues with the library not being fully open.
Right, and excuse me, I did look at a text a little bit earlier, just going back to it. Adrian Lauder did share that there's a meeting with the library tomorrow regarding this whole issue of providing easier access for excuse me, students, families to books. So
yeah, and that was actually in discussion for a period of time, even before the county took over management of our library for us, that they were looking at doing that with one of the other districts in the county. And so hopefully that's something we can get to move pretty quickly, because I think they are already doing it in some other places.
Yep.
I saw Mr. Inouye's, the ideas of getting the protocols in place and stuff, and rather than picking a date, obviously that's a lot more discussion we're going to have, and we'll need to have our ducks in a row before we actually open.
Yeah, and I would just reiterate and tell your friends, everybody, Dixon Unified School District has not identified a date upon which we want to reopen in hybrid. We do not have a date.
And then lastly, just the generalized comments about students having to switch teachers potentially, and teachers having to lose students. Obviously, that's not anything we like. But of course, as some people said, we've got to figure out how to make this happen if it's what we're going to do.
You bet. Yeah, I totally appreciate the sentiment from the three teachers who expressed it there. I know it would be matched by everybody. You know, the bonds are there at this point in time, even with Zoom, and we would be happy to be able to avoid that as we roll forward if we can.
Did any of the rest of the board catch any other ones that we've missed that you think we need to address?
I didn't, but I did have one question if I can ask after listening to all the comments. I know that we're going to have the 3 town hall meetings where we're going to get input from parents, and there's surveys that went out to parents. Is there going to be another survey that's going to go out to teachers as well?
Yes, we met with, good question, Melissa. We met with DTA for our first day of negotiations yesterday, and we had some conversation. There's 2 areas we need to survey with staff right now. I'll touch on both of those. So one is just how distance learning is going, kind of the educational side of things right now. We also do need to hear from them regarding this issue around hybrid, and you know, whether we're going to solicit that information or whether the association is going to solicit that information. It's something we need to firm up. In some districts, the district does the surveying, and in others, the union does the surveying. I think we have a sense together of the kinds of things we need to ask, It may be that we figure out the exact questions we want to do together, and then have DTA be the collector of that information. There's pros and cons to either way, I think. So teachers will be working on the how are things going kind of survey, and then what the right vehicle is to ask them for data about reopening. And currently we have a parent survey out, again, that's kind of focused on how things are going. And we encourage all of our families who have not done so yet to complete that survey. It does not take very long. We actually ask for parents to try to do it for each one of their children. If you have a high schooler and an elementary age kid, their experiences are really different. So families, please try to complete both of those if you can. That survey does not include any questions around the question of hybrid. And we will get some sense from people next week with the town halls. And depending on some of that direction, I can see us going in one of two ways. One is going ahead and doing a survey, which would take some time, and you get a portion of your families to respond. And if it were targeted, if we do take the path of focusing on TK2, you'd probably really want to target it to those families. The other approach is to, if direction, let's say on the 15th from you folks, if you're ready for that at that point in time, is to, try to plan towards that TK2 or TK1, whatever it may be, that we would forego a survey and we would just ask people a question, make your choice, please. Two ways that could go, right? And the survey, if we're on the path towards a hybrid reopening for those lower grades, the survey doesn't have as much value as the idea of the tell us what your choice is going to be, I think. So we'll make that determination here after the town halls next week.
Okay. Anything else, Melissa? Okay, seeing not. Okay, so obviously there's a lot more discussion to be had. So thank you for everyone that's given comments tonight. Please continue to come and do so.
Yeah, and I would just make a pitch again, the town halls next week. And these really are designed as a chance for questions and answers, input for parents. There's nothing that prohibits anybody else from joining in and watching. We would prefer if the discussion was conducted with parents, but anybody can join in. The same Zoom link that got you here tonight will get you to all three of those meetings next week. Again, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 6:30 p.m.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
And this is just information and discussion, so we will move on to item 11A2, approval of COVID-19 mitigation plan.
Thank you. And this, I should have titled this perhaps a little bit differently in the description. So this is actually approval. We're asking for a board policy. That's board policy 0470 on COVID-19 mitigation plan. And typically we do bring you a board policy at one meeting, and 2 weeks later we bring it back for your approval. And we're actually under a time constraint with regards to this particular policy. We do have a deadline, I believe it's of October 5th, that we have to have this policy adopted. So a little bit of history on the policy itself. It was developed, as all of our policies are, by the California School Boards Association. They have a very large team of people who convert law, regulations, guidance into specific policies and administrative regulations for school districts to adopt. And this policy did additionally go, and this is not the typical step, but it went through North Bay Schools Insurance Authority review. North Bay is our JPA through which we have our insurance coverage. So this had 2 levels of scrutiny upon it at CSBA level, where it was developed, and through the North Bay Schools Insurance Authority, where it was reviewed. And I'm going to run through and just kind of give you the components of the policy. And again, just the first couple of sentences in this, the following policy establish actions that may be taken by the district to provide a safe learning and working environment during the pandemic. So nothing in this is actually required. What this really does is set forth a range of parameters and a range of recommended, encouraged practices and such. The goal of this is to help school districts navigate through this COVID-19 pandemic successfully. So the components of the policy itself, they include instruction/schedules, evaluation of academic progress following campus closure, grading, health screening of students, student absence and attendance, social distancing, personal protective equipment and hygiene practices, sanitation of facilities and equipment, food services, staff, and let's see, follow up with infected persons, contact tracing, non-discrimination, community relations. Sorry, these papers are sticking together on me. Potential reclosure of campus. So these topics should sound familiar to us because they are the kinds of things that we have been dealing with throughout this. So happy to answer any questions that the Board or public has on the policy itself. Otherwise, would ask for your approval this evening.
Okay, any board questions?
I did have one question. When I was looking through it, it was talking about under the grading, it did have a specific thing on there that said pass, no pass, or grades. Is that just so we could choose? Because I thought we were pretty clear about that we were doing grades this semester.
Yeah, yes, this talks about options. And so you have pass, no pass. You have, so you have 3 criteria there. Assignment of final grades based on students' grades when a shutdown took place, pass, no pass grades, or grading based on students' understanding of applicable course content through assessments, projects, portfolios, other appropriate means. So that last one is basically the standard grading approach that we are using.
Okay, so does that mean that we have to take a look at it each semester that we're in some kind of COVID?
No,
Okay.
not at all. Yeah, we would bring that back. So if we were to have a transition of some note and we felt that, or if you felt that we wanted to revisit the grading standards, we would bring that back and have that conversation here. But otherwise, it's not required that we do that. Okay.
Any other board questions? Okay, seeing none, I have a few. So on page 25, it talks about that upon return to campus, we'll evaluate the impact of campus closure on students' academic progress. How would we go about doing that? Have you guys discussed that yet?
So, we do a variety of assessments every school year, and especially early in the year in the elementary setting, teachers administer assessments to help determine where students are, and that practice really would not be any different. Where we're not as sophisticated in that kind of benchmark assessment element is in a secondary setting, right? So, but you do have department and course level assessments that could be utilized. It's just a much more typical and uniform practice in the elementary setting. So we'd have to do some additional work, I think, about the secondary folks.
So those would be discussions with sites on how to do that, and
absolutely, yes,
all part of the return discussions.
Correct.
Okay. Let's see. Page 29, I just wanted to just bring this up just to make sure we do. I mean, you know, it's not like washing hands and wearing masks is rocket science, but it does say we'll have training for staff as well, obviously, as students, because some students really will need that.
Right.
So that training may not necessarily be a, half-day training, but I want to make sure we don't miss that.
Yes.
And then page 30 talks about clean drinking water being available other than drinking fountains, because you want to minimize contacts with drinking fountains.
Yes.
So what would our idea be to make that available?
So a variety of options are possible there, right? And
Sorry, Brian, can I address that real quickly?
Certainly, former host, Mr. Monticello.
Thank you, Mark.
So we received a grant in the spring and never put it to fruition. We have about 3,000 stainless steel reusable water bottles, and we have to work with a contractor to put in water stations at our school site, so students will use that to fill their bottles. I don't know if you saw or not, but if you were at John Knight Middle School, those drinking fountains are now the water bottle dispenser type.
Yeah.
So that is the plan coming up. I'm still working with the county to get those water dispensers put in, but that is one of the things that we are looking at for that, along with closing all drinking fountains.
So you don't see that as being something that we will have difficulty with?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Brian.
No, thank you. I had forgotten about those. Yeah, I had a little bit of involvement on that when it was getting started, and I forgot we had all those bottles here, so we're in good shape.
Yeah, I did see that we had one. I saw one of those at JKMS when we were touring. I didn't know how many were there. So, okay, that's all the questions I had on that. So let's go out to public questions and comments on the, what we have entitled 11A2, Approval of COVID-19 Mitigation Plan. Do we have any public comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve COVID-19 mitigation plan, which is actually adoption of this new policy, item 11A2?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Buell?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. All right, Luke, our next item, Maria Lukin is going to give us a brief update on the District Equity Task Force. Maria, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Mark, may I please have permission to share my screen? I just have a very brief presentation.
Sorry, I gave that to Mr. Dolan.
Yes, you got it, Maria.
Thank you. Are you able to see my screen now?
We can.
Okay, wonderful. So good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be here this afternoon, this evening, to just give you a brief update on the Equity Task Force that we are hoping to, well, we're not hoping, we're starting very soon here. So as a quick overview, this Equity Task Force is aiming to operationalize board policy, a board policy that was adopted on February 7th of 2019 that tasks the district with ensuring that equity is the intentional result of district decisions, and that we're developing and implementing strategies that promote equity across the board in the district. Equity is measured with 9 metrics according to this board policy. And we had discussed these back on August 20th, the last time I had the opportunity to speak to you all. You see those metrics on the screen: student achievement data, student needs assessments, analysis of expenditures, enrollment in extracurriculars, positive school climate, culturally relevant curriculum, community support, employment and retention of diverse staff, and professional learning that is ongoing, research-based, and culturally relevant. Our aim, and this is again a review from the last time I had the opportunity to speak with you all, our essential question for this project is, how do we as an equity task force operationalize the intent of this board policy? How do we put it into action? And our product will be to identify measures of equity and build a plan to address them by creating an evaluation tool that would enable the Board of Education to regularly monitor progress. So a bit of an update on recruitment. We put out a survey to see if we had any interesting parties, and we had a total of 29 applications that were received. We had originally set the goal to close the application period on September 5th, but we had unfortunately very few applications. So we actually kept that application window open. It's in fact still open because we wanted to make sure that all stakeholder groups were represented in the equity task force. We did not have representation from all the major groups that our students belong to. So we wanted to make sure that both language groups, both major language groups were represented. We wanted to make sure that our migrant populations and our special education populations were represented. And we had some representation, but we really needed to have a little bit more. We wanted to make sure we had all language fluencies. So we're hearing from families that represent families that are English only, families of English earners, and families of reclassified English earners. We wanted to make sure we had student voices from both traditional and alternative programs. And we wanted to make sure we had all employment classifications reflected in this group. So certificated teachers, classified staff, and certificated and classified management. Because we initially didn't get representation from all of those groups, we leaned heavily on our principals. So thank you, principals, for helping us identify potential stakeholders, and it really helped us in recruitment, both identifying families and students for us to reach out to. We did see an increase in applications. Originally, we had gotten 7. We're up to 29, and we're feeling really confident that we have representation from all groups. Active recruitment is continuing through next week, and any applicants will be selected of either selection or non-selection into the group on October 12th. Our equity task force meetings are going to take place on the last Monday of every month. They'll run for 90 minutes from 5:30 to 7 p.m. I've listed the dates on the screen, and we will, there'll be a total of 8 meetings. So again, to review, the equity task force selection is for this year only. This is not a task force that would end in May of 2021. It would continue, but we would seek different membership or continued membership if the current members wanted to continue. All materials and all meetings will be conducted bilingually. We really aim to have language equity, and the groups, the work groups will be self-selected by language dominance. So if a participant indicates that they are bilingual, they can choose either English or Spanish. So work will be the same. It'll just be conducted in a language that they feel the most comfortable in. And we're going to make every attempt to ensure that the equity task force, any product that we come up with, we want to make sure that we're blending it seamlessly with existing district and site plans and strategies. So for instance, we'll be employing a lot of AVID strategies to facilitate the group, as well as making sure that we are not creating any product that will be in conflict with our LCAPs or SIPs, LCAP, we only have one, or SIPSAs or any AVID site plans that may be existing. Because coherence is really important to any new endeavor. So our immediate next steps are to continue recruitment through the end of next week. We'll notify participants, I'm sorry, we'll notify applicants of selection or non-selection by October 13th. By phone or email. We'll attempt both. We know that some of our families prefer that personal touch of a phone call, so we'll definitely make phone calls when needed. And the first Equity Task Force meeting will take place on October 26th via Zoom. So that is my brief overview. What questions do you have?
Great. Any board questions?
Yeah, how many approximately, if you have 29 applicants now, how many participants are you looking to choose?
Well, we have 29 applicants, and in addition to that, we are, I'm also in communication with, let me make sure I give you the correct numbers, 12 additional applicants to make sure that we have representation from everyone. We don't have a final number in mind. We're aiming for about 25.
About
25.
25?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any other board questions? Okay, seeing none. Not a question, just thank you for the effort to make sure all groups are represented. Obviously, with an equity task force, that's very important. So I appreciate, it's not always easy to get people when they're busy in their lives to give up some time to come do this kind of stuff. And I appreciate your efforts to get that done. Okay, so yeah. So seeing no more board questions, let's open this up to public comment. I see we have Valerie.
Okay, hi there. Thanks so much for your presentation. And I was very happy to see you on the agenda. So I just, I think you're right. Absolutely, it's important that the Equity Task Force represents the community. And sometimes reaching reaching everyone to make sure that they are aware of what it is, it can be a challenge. I think starting at the principals, I know these principals here at our schools know their student population and their families, which is a great way to reach out and encourage people. My only concern is that I do have people that have applied during the deadline, and they were asking me, have we heard anything? Have we heard anything? And I kept forgetting to email you because I would get distracted. So just with other things going on, child number 4, things like that. And I wanted to know, is there a way you can communicate that out to those parents, or was that communicated and it just got missed because they were all expecting to hear back? And I know some of them are not on the board meeting right now.
I did not communicate that, so thank you for bringing that up, Valerie. I will do that first thing tomorrow morning, notify everyone of the extension.
Because I know you're welcome, of course, and I know one of them definitely would fit the profile you're looking for. Anyway, I just don't want them to get discouraged.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay,
so thank you so much.
Thank you, Valerie. Denise is muted.
Denise is up next. Salvo Diaz.
Go ahead.
I just have a clarifying question. So will I still be able to apply for it?
Yes, please. The application is still open. I will quadruple check right now. So the application should still be open. And if it's not, I'll just click the toggle and open it up so you can apply.
I was checking it and it said that it was no longer taking any responses.
That was an accident. I'll fix it right now.
God, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your interest. And if I may, I just really want to thank the principals for helping us identify families and students. This work would be impossible without them. So thank you, principals, for all of your help with us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item?
The application is now open.
Okay. And Maria, would you just state again how people, where they go to get that if they want to apply?
I had sent out a communication to the DUSD Everyone group, and we had also posted it on Facebook. I will repeat that process tomorrow morning. And Mr. Dolan, can we post this on the website as well?
Easily, yes.
Okay.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. Okay, so seeing no more comments or questions on this item, thank you very much, Maria. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Maria.
And let's move on to item 11A4, John Knight Middle School renovation project contract increase proposal, window kitchen project, Yuba Sutter Inspection Services.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to introduce Lee Coop from School Site Solutions Incorporated. Lee's a fairly familiar face with us here, and she'll just explain the details on an extension of contract and a new one as well for our inspection services. Lee, it's all yours.
Thank you, Superintendent Dolan. Yes, my name is Lee Coop with School Site Solutions, and we assist the district with facility projects, and including the JKMS renovation project and the window kitchen project that's happening there. This is for Yuba Sutter Inspection Services. They perform project inspector services. A PI on a project, school project, is a required person, and they have an interesting role. They report to both Division of the State Architect and also work to make sure that the district has the best, the constructed school that it's supposed to have, and it meets the codes. So, and that the contractor is doing what they're supposed to do. They have a very important function of doing all the reporting on the site, and also they do the closeout. They help the district and architect with the closeout of the project, which we've talked about previously, which is very important. So Yuba Sutter has been doing a great job for us. Mr. Bob Boyer is the inspector. And right now they have a contract that's ongoing for the renovation project. And because the time has extended, the schedule has extended now to November 15th, he's asked, and we recommend that there's an extension on his contract of a not to exceed amount of $33,475. And then on the window kitchen project, which is a new project, you may ask, well, he's on the same site, why can't it all be the same? Well, because this is the Division of the State Architect, and he is doing reporting for a completely different project and looking at different things. So that one is a new contract, and we're asking for $23,650 not to exceed. He only gets paid for the hours that he spends on it, so it's not a lump sum. And that would take, the window kitchen project is scheduled for completion on December 15th. So we would recommend approval of both, and I take any questions.
Thank you, Lee. Any board questions? Okay, seeing none. Any public questions on this item? Okay, seeing no public questions. I will entertain a motion for approval of item 11A4, John Knight Middle School JKMS renovation project contract increase proposal and JKMS window kitchen project new contract, Yuba Sutter Inspection Services.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Thank you, Jewel. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, thanks, Lee.
And now we will go on to item 11A5. This is our second read update of board policies and administrative regulations.
Yes, so thank you, Luke. So at our last meeting, presented this set of updates of board policies and administrative regulations, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, with the COVID mitigation plan. These are developed by the California School Board Association, their team of staff over there. At the last meeting, I did run through the number and title and a brief description of each of these policies, answered any questions that may have existed at that time. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions that your public has. Otherwise, would ask for your approval tonight.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any more questions or comments? Seeing none, let's go out to the public. Are there any public questions or comments on this item?
Seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion for approval of item 11A5, update of board policies and administrative regulations?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Yule?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
11A6.
Same item, different set of policies. Reviewed last time we were together. Entertain any questions that you have. Otherwise, ask for your approval.
Okay, any board questions? Seeing none, any public questions on this item?
Seeing none.
Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve item 11A6, update of board policies and administrative regulations?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Yule?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, 11B1. AB 1200 disclosure and public comment on proposed tentative agreement with SEIU Local 1021. All yours, Monique.
Good evening. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. This evening I am presenting for information the AB 1200 disclosure for public comment on the proposed tentative agreement between SEIU Local 1021 and the district. The AB 21, as it's not AB 21, the AB 12,000, as it's commonly called, is a required disclosure of the potential costs of a tentative agreement with our labor groups. At this time, we project that over the course of this particular contract from October 1, 2019 to September 30th, 2022, that the total cost over those 3 years would be about $44,000. It's important to note that because we have been certified as both negative and we've also been certified as qualified, we are required to submit this disclosure to the County Office of Education and give them at least 10 working days to review and provide any comments or concerns related to this item. We did submit this report to them yesterday, and so 10 days after that would be about October 14th. At this time, we believe that the $44,000 over 3 years isn't extremely significant, and we are taking this into consideration as we develop our budget stabilization plan. What questions do you have?
Okay, thank you, Monique. Any board questions? Seeing none. Okay, let's open this up for public questions and comments. Any public questions or comments on this item?
Seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve item 11B1, AB 1200 disclosure and public comment on proposed tentative agreement with SEIU Local 1021.
This one actually, Luke, is just the information discussion. It's
Oh,
just,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the next one is the action item that
You are correct. Thank you.
Andy will take.
Okay, thank you, Monique.
Thanks, Monique.
Thank you.
Let's go on to the next one then, 11C1. Approval of the tentative agreements between DUSD and Service Employees International Union Local 1021 for 2019 through 2022.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Board President Luke, members of the board, Superintendent Dolan. The item before you for consideration tonight is to renew the SEIU's assessor contract from October 1, 2019 through September 30th, 2022, with the modifications from the tentative agreements and the district's last, best, and final. When a successor contract is open, all articles in the contract are open for discussion. The parties made changes to 15 articles. Of course, each article has sections within them that were reviewed for changes and updates as well. We did add one new article to the contract titled Commitment to Training. We believe the changes negotiated reflects our commitment to our classified employees, students, and the families that we serve in our district. Some of the highlights, while not an exhaustive list, addresses a key issue that has been discussed for over a year and a half, and that is the PERS reporting and overpayment issue of our 9-month employees when an employee leaves the district during a school year, mid-year. There's an option the district has created for our 9-month employees to help them through this transition year, as well as ongoing options should they choose to take advantage of it in the future. Another area we will be working with our SEIU leadership team is around professional development and training opportunities for our classified employees. We will be forming a professional development committee so that we can collaborate and brainstorm on meaningful and beneficial sessions that our employees would be excited to participate in. By going through all of the articles in the contract, we are also able to update contract language to be in alignment with current practice, laws, or regulations as applicable. This cleanup will help with providing updated information to all of our classified employees. I'd also like to thank the district's negotiations team members, as well as our SEIU's bargaining team members, for all of their time, commitment, and effort throughout this whole process. Staff's recommendation tonight is to approve the SEIU tentative agreements, as well as the district's last, best, and final, pending SCO's approval of the AB 1200. At this time, I can take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Do we have any board questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank everybody who participated in this, in particular the SEIU and members and their team for just being so flexible and creative, and the administration's negotiations team as well for really coming up with some good solutions. And when it's appropriate, I'll move this item.
Thank you, Catlin. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, let's go out for public questions or comments. Any public comment on this item?
Seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, we have a motion from Catlin, correct? Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Rule?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I from me as well. And thank you to everyone who worked so hard to get this done. And the motion passes.
And if I could just add on to that a little bit, you know, this successor contract work was a really lengthy process, and you know, we went through some of the really final and complex and challenging steps through this, which was you know, additional work and certainly tried patience and energy and all those types of things. But we really do want to acknowledge and thank SEIU and its leadership in particular here for doing all the work to get us. You know, Susie Altieri, the chapter president, mentioned in her report up front that we have reached agreement on memorandum of understanding with the unit here on our distance learning model. And so, you know, recognition tonight for 2 milestones with SEIU that we really applaud. Hard work behind both of them for sure. And you know, we've said a number of times, and some of you touched on it again tonight, our classified employees really have stepped up through this whole pandemic, feeding students in person, face to face, every day, but about 5 since March. And the work that they're doing out with our families in school offices, helping with textbook distributions, just a lot of really frontline forms of support for students and families and staff, as well as we go through this this mess, right? And so they really do deserve our gratitude and respect for what they've been doing. So thank you to our classified employees and your leadership.
Yes, thank you, SEIU bargaining team and leadership. And thank you as well, Cindy, and the whole district bargaining team as well, because I know you guys also put in a lot of time and work on this. So everyone all around, thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to item 11D1, Dixon Unified School District Instructional Materials Compliance Public Notice. This is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing. Do we have Mr. Giramonte with us?
No, we did once upon a time.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but was the MOU a separate item from the successor contract, or?
It is, yeah. It looks like we need action on the second item.
I don't.
So I don't see that on our agenda, actually.
Yeah, did I was looking.
No, I'm concerned that we made that.
It's on the agenda that's posted online.
Oh, it is?
On
Okay.
the website, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I have a hard copy that, that's right. This hard copy went out on Friday.
I
So
think
yes,
I think I printed that as well. So
we
is it,
added this item. Thank you, Cindy. I'm sure you were going, what happened? We did all
I
this
was
work.
here. I just knew it wasn't my turn.
Yeah,
now you get
sure,
to
Nick. Yes.
Now you get to wait. So is
So
this
yes.
11C2 then?
Yes, C2. Thank you very much.
And I don't have that in front of me. So that's approval of the SEIU MOU.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go back to that, of course. Go ahead, Cindy. Thank you for catching me on that.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much. We would like to open this item by thanking all of our classified employees for their hard work, patience, and understanding as we work through this MOU. There were many conversations that took place leading up to this agreement, and we worked very collaboratively in addressing all parties' concerns and ideas throughout this whole process. This MOU also outlines professional development and training opportunities specific to distance learning, the model that we're in right now, and the option to utilize remote work days and the expectations with that, safety guidelines and protocols that are already in place but memorialized. Our classified employees truly want to support distance learning and our students through this challenging time. This MOU allows for flexibility in considering different duties for our various different classifications within our classified unit during this distance learning model. And we can't express enough words of appreciation for their efforts and commitment to our students right now. Since Brian was at the table for this, I wanted to see if there was anything else I missed or if there's anything you wanted to add, Brian.
No, take out the whole second half of what I said there a moment ago, which applied to the MOU. I apologize for that. You know, those heartfelt comments do apply. Classified employees have really answered the call here, and we appreciate their work with us through this process, and ask for the board to endorse what they came to us with and how we got this figured out together.
Any other board comments?
So did they approve it?
Thank you. Thank you for everyone's hard work. That's what I will like to say.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. Yeah, and I would just add, negotiation takes reasonable ability to compromise. And you guys have worked really hard, as Brian said, and I appreciate personally your ability to compromise to have us get this done. and again, the hard work from both SEIU and the district. Okay, so any public comment on the MOU?
I'm seeing none, although Susie has her mic on. I don't know if she wanted to say something or not. Sorry.
Susie, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I don't actually. Brian said a lot of what I wanted to say. Giving a shout out to all of our employees. We have had folks working for the entire time. You know, I think of all of the conversations that have been around, you know, teachers coming back, and you understand all of their concerns, certainly. But a lot of our members have been here throughout this entire time, and they've been serving the public, from our receptionists to our grounds folks, our custodial, our food service. They've all been out there, and you know, we just appreciate all of our office staff who have been serving the public throughout this time, and we just really want to acknowledge all of them, which you did. And I thank you very much for that. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Susie.
Thank you, Susie, and thank you for your leadership.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the MOU with SEIU?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We've made comments, but does anyone want to make a comment before we vote? Okay, seeing none. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
And now we will go back to 11D1. Nick, are you there?
I am here. I have been. So 2 items tonight that are linked. This is our annual instructional materials opportunity for us to have a public hearing to talk about that, and then a resolution to follow should the board be so inclined. Just a quick couple notes here. We have already had our visit from Solano County, and they have sent us a tentative letter pending your approval tonight. Want to thank them for their work with us, and especially wanted to throw a shout out to Susie Altieri, Denise Diaz, and Telly Gutierrez, as well as Maria Luquin, for all their hard work to make sure that we have all the materials that we need for our kids to be successful. Obviously, it was a little different year this year. Typically, the county comes out and actually counts book by book by book at certain sites. And this year, we had to show them the process by which we distributed books for their approval, but in their eyes, we are good to go.
Okay, thank you, Nick. And I previously opened this public hearing, so I won't I'll do it again just to be official. Okay, it's open. So do we have any board questions or comments on this public hearing? Seeing none, do we have any public questions or comments on this public hearing item?
Seeing none.
Seeing none. Okay, so I will close the public hearing. And we'll move on to 11D2, resolution number 20-1632, instructional materials compliance.
Yeah, and so this is the resolution attached to that public hearing, certifying that we are in compliance with everything we need to be in compliance with per Williams.
Thank you, Nick. Do we have any board questions or comments?
No.
Seeing none, do we have any public questions or comments with regard to this item?
Seeing none.
Seeing none, do we have this is a resolution. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 20-1632, instructional materials compliance?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda items for future meetings. Does anyone have any agenda items? Okay, hearing none. Any board announcements? Hearing none. Coming events, October 12th, local holiday, October 15th, board meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.